and welcome to Teach Assist Online Virtual Classroom. Today we're going to be discussing English literature poetry and the correct ways to analyse a poem. The first thing to think about when analysing a poem is who's the speaker in the poem. The voice in the poem isn't necessarily the poet himself. Poets often speak through personas, real or imagined, personal or impersonal, though of course it can be anything. For example, is it in the first person, the second person, the third person? Is there anything that implies anything about the speaker? Who are they speaking to? Also, it's important to consider the setting of the poem. Where does the poem take place? A poem can be set anywhere, in the past, the present, or even the future. How does this setting and location influence the atmosphere of the poem? Also, what is the form of the poem exactly? Poems can be written in various forms, which dictate their length, their layout, the length line, the rhyme scheme. Some forms are associated with different themes and genres, such as sonnets. They're commonly used for love poetry. Ballads are a form of a narrative story, also love. Poems make a deliberate decision about which form to choose, and forms always interact with the content, whether to reinforce it or to work against it. A sonnet about the end of a relationship, for example, might have a particular form. The best way to work out and begin talking about the form is to start counting. Counting is something that also really calms your nerves when you're in an exam studying a poem. Count the number of stanzas, the number of lines, the number of syllables in the lines, if they're regular, if there's a pattern, mark the rhymes and the stresses. This should help show up any patterns where the poem deviates from this or tries to break away from the pattern. Thinking about rhyme, for example, are all the rhymes full? Are they perfect? Do they rhyme all the way through? Are they regular or are they irregular? Subject matter, for example, as well. What's the poem about? What's it trying to tell you? If you aren't sure, try to describe exactly what's happening in the poem. It's fine to express a difficulty in understanding, as the poet could have made it that way. It could be meant to be quite difficult for you to understand. To help you with this, look at the imagery in the poem. Imagery is a huge factor in poetry. Poets often use metaphorical language that takes words beyond their literal meanings and attempt to do so in novel ways. Perhaps choose a couple of the most interesting images in the poem and comment on them. Why are they interesting? What is the poet doing? What's your interpretation of the imagery? All of these methods are very good for analysing the poem, and we're going to use them now as an example of this one. This poem is called The Clown Punk. First of all, what we can say is that the clown punk is an oxymoron used to show how people see him as a silly character. Driving home through the shonky side of town, that implies it's an unpleasant, derelict side of town, and therefore it's quite a poor, unwealthy area. There's the line, like a basket of washing that got up and walked. This is a metaphor and a simile. The simile implies that it's just unconventionally, but it could also refer to the fact that a basket of washing could be dirty or grubbing, and therefore linking in with the setting, which we said was unpleasant and dirty. Down here we have the deflated face and shrunken scalp. This highlights the mistake made by a youth. Perhaps the character regrets all of the things that he may have done in the past, leading to his quite poor image of the deflated face and shrunken scalp. Again, this leads to perhaps his unwealthy status, and he's not very well looked after. We also have the windscreen wipers and Let It Rain. This is imagery we can use here. The idea of rain symbolises quite a dark and gloomy setting. Rain isn't really associated with a happy kind of weather, so this gives quite a dark tone to the poem. As you can see, I've used quite a few of these different methods when annotating this poem, and this is a very good idea to do while sitting your examinations. The important thing is to keep calm, not to stress as much as you can, and just go through the poem line by line and find as much as you can about it without worrying too much. Thank you for watching.
Yay!